front.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the January 15th meeting of the Budget Committee and also our public hearing. Let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mr. Markland, would you like to lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Patrick O'Brien.
Peter Levin.
Beth Barney.
Bob Holt.
John Markland.
Approval of the agenda. I just wanted to add in, we'll bump down under number 5. Instead of number 5, we need to add in the public hearing for the town budget at 6:30. And then we also need to add in the school budget public hearing at 7 o'clock.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. All right, we will open up at this time the public hearing. Just a couple ground rules right off. We are going to limit individuals to 3 minutes per person per item, and then back at the end of your 3 minutes, we'll see if there are any other public that would like to come forward, and then perhaps we can have you come back up at the end, just so that everybody has a fair chance of getting their voice heard. So we will start right off with the 2020 warrant articles. Did everybody have time to review the sheets? I would entertain if anybody wanted to take a 5-minute recess just to catch up on the sheets. Hearing or seeing no interest in that, I guess we'll just move right on forward. So again, if you'd like to follow along, the cover page is 2020 warrant articles. You are hereby notified to meet at the Prospect Mountain High School on Tuesday, the 4th day of February in the year 2020, beginning at 6 o'clock in the evening. For the purpose of deliberating upon the following warrant articles in the town's elections to approve the warrant articles by ballot vote, which will be held on March 10th, 2020 at St. Catherine Drexel Church, lower level, 40 Hidden Springs Road, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Again, we will only be going over the money warrant articles tonight, so we won't be discussing any of the zoning or town office articles. So we'll start out with Article 12, Benefit Pay Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added to the Benefit Pay Expendable Trust Fund previously established in 2001. Said funds are recommended by the town auditors to be used to pay for benefits accrued by town employees and redeemed when they leave employment with the town of Alton, in accordance with the town personnel policy. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and also recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Anybody have any input on this article? Article 13, Operating Budget. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on this budget, posted with the warrant, or as amended by a vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $8,267,897. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $8,090,865, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Board of Selectmen or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and XVI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This article does not include special or individual articles addressed. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Any public input on this article?
Are you going to go over these, Lauren, are you going to go over these sheets later in the meeting?
Mr. to state his name.
Lori, if you could just speak into the mic, sorry, I apologize.
Are you going to go over the detailed pages later? Or is it going to happen now with this warrant article?
We didn't intend on going back through, but if you have any questions on any particular lines and any particular budgets, this would probably be the best time.
Okay. On the detail pages, I see on 4130, 200,000 to 181, 400, 199, 225 is what recommended. That's a 9.82% increase. Can you tell us why tell me why that's so high?
Just a moment.
Full-time wages.
4130.
4130, 010.
010.
Oh, dear. Okay.
It was 181, 400 last year, actual. Now it's 199, 225. $17,825.
I'll defer to the town administrator.
So the increase would be for a placeholder of a merit increase of 0 up to 3.5% for 2020.
0 to
So
point,
every employee is eligible for a merit increase based on an evaluation from anywhere between 0% merit up to a 3.5 cap. 3.5% of a cap. So
okay, but this comes up more than 3.5.
Well, there's also a contractual placeholder of 5% for the town administrator, an end of probation increase of 25 cents per hour after completion of the probation for the finance manager, along with the 3.5
So,
she mentioned.
5%.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Stein?
So when you're looking at the sheet, which columns are you comparing?
181, 400. And 199, 225.
So that's column 4, the 181,400. That's an incorrect column. So that's only what has been expended
Yeah.
so far in the 2019 budget. The proposed and approved 2019 budget is column 3, the 200,137. So there's actually a decrease in that line.
Okay, so the 2019 is what was actually spent in 2019.
Right. But we have not closed the
But we
books
haven't
yet on
closed the books.
2019.
So you're saying the 200, 137, and the,
3 minutes.
it's gonna come, it was gonna be, okay.
Mr. Carr, is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this article? I'll honor another 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the building department, 4192, 010. That's a 5.2% increase.
So also included in that line would be 2 health officer stipends for 2 of our current full-time employees.
2 health,
Health officer stipends, because we have a health officer and we have a deputy health officer.
so this is, there's 2 new positions in this
No,
line?
they have been in existence for years and years.
So why wasn't that in the 93, 92 previously?
It was.
But if anybody, the most somebody's gonna get is 3.5, and if you take that number, 392, to 95,093, it comes up to 5.2. Should only come up to 3.5 at the most, right?
Am I correct to understand that the wage adjustment that was given this past year isn't reflected in what would be considered the 2019 budget? Okay.
You can go ahead and answer that one.
The what?
So in the actual 2019 budgeted number of the 9392, the merit raises are not reflected in that the employees received in 2019. So that's why you cannot take that figure and just do the 3.5%, because they got somewhere between 0 and 3% this year. That's not in that number.
So would it be under, so it wouldn't be under the 9660?
Yes, but depending on what they got for an increase.
So the 9660, if I take that from the 95,093, most I should get is 3.5?
No. Because you have the health officer, like she said. So there's a number that he'll get as a stipend that's in that number as well. And I don't have that off the top of my head.
Then how does the budget committee know what's going on here if you don't have the numbers?
When they,
Those were presented during the presentation.
So that was all reviewed back when we went through line by line. And specifically, there was a lot of talk and confusion on why those raises weren't necessarily included. But again, as far as whether or not these books are technically closed yet or not, if these are final numbers for 2018,
do you want me to answer that?
if you
The
wouldn't mind.
wages are, yes.
Okay, so the wages are final.
And, Lauren, you're welcome to stop into the town hall upstairs here, anytime during normal business hours, and we can sit down with you and explain anything that you have questions on, if you'd like.
I'm kind of questioning now the budget committee's ability to okay these numbers, or if they haven't got the numbers. Okay, so I guess it's the same thing with the buildings and grounds maintenance.
Did you want me to start another 3-minute time period, or did you want to get a motion from the board to continue, or it's up to you all?
Are the rest of your questioned lines relative to the same topic?
I guess so, because they certainly didn't seem to come out right. I mean, like, police department is the same thing, and I think you people should have had the numbers before you okayed this. And I've got, one other question is, last year, there was a controversy about the department heads not being listed, instead of being under a lump sum, these wages. And I know one of the selectmen said he wants to see the department heads listed separately this year, and I see they're not.
That wasn't anything that was discussed by this particular board.
No, what the selectmen did. So again, I'll have to ask at the town meeting, or the deliberative session, I'll have to ask them to tell me what the department heads are making.
Understood.
Okay. Now I've got another item, but I guess I got my 3 minutes? It's on the default budget.
I just assume if we're going to be discussing the overall budget, then we handle it right here and now.
Okay.
I'm happy to
On
hear
the
it.
default budget. There is no raises in here, correct? Raises ain't in here this year. Or merit pay, or whatever you want to call them.
Would you like me to answer?
What's he in there?
If you're more prepared to answer that question than I, absolutely.
So the answer is no.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, he's in the default package.
So the,
I already got that,
on
yeah. Yeah, there's not.
4329, water benefit buyout. It says personnel policy. Can you explain to me that one?
29.
What's the account number?
It's 4331-029. And it appears again in the Recreation Department under personnel policy. And I think the police,
I guess I would defer to our finance manager if you're prepared to speak on that.
Yeah, the individual department buyout lines
Yep.
are for, at the end of the year, the employee can choose to buy out their vacation time or personal time that they did not use
Yep.
over the year. That's what that is. So each department has to budget worst-case scenario, that if nobody used their time.
Okay, do these people have a contract, under a
It's
contract?
part of the policy.
But a policy isn't a contract.
Some portions of it.
The employee manual is in essence a contract, and that has been discussed at various deliberative sessions and here at the Budget Committee level and at the Selectmen level.
But if it's a contract, then how can the selectmen arbitrarily change it anytime they want?
Because they are the governing body and they have the right to change policy for the town.
Right. So you're saying that anybody can sign a contract with a company and they can change the rate that they're going to get, pay, with how many vacations, et cetera, et cetera? I don't think that would stand up in a court of law.
With a company,
Yeah. A contract is between two parties. And if one party can change it any time that they want, it isn't really a contract. It's a policy.
As much as I completely hear what you're saying, I don't know that this particular board is going to be able to solve that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other input on Article 13? Move on to Article 14, New Riverside Cemetery Engineering. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of engineering needed at the New Riverside Cemetery in order to lay out all required work that needs to be done to the site for expansion and usage, such as a utility corridor for utilities needed on-site, interior travelways, roadways, or roads, layouts of lots, and more. The special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 VI and will not lapse until the engineering project is completed or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. A majority vote is required. Any input on Article 14? Article 15, Fire Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be added to the Fire Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 1973. Recommended by the Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0, recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Any input on Article 15? Article 16, Fire Department Ladder Truck. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be used towards the purchase of a fire ladder truck. Said funds to come from undesignated fund balance, which will not have an impact on the tax rate. This article is contingent upon receiving the award of a FEMA grant. Should the grant funding not be received, this article is null and void. Recommended by the Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Is there any discussion or input on Article 16? Article 17, Grounds and Maintenance Vehicle and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $23,000 to be added to the Grounds and Maintenance Vehicle and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2019. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Any input on Article 17? Article 18, Highway Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 to be added to the Highway Department Equipment Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 1981. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Any input on Article 18? Article 19, Highway Road Construction Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $950,000 to be added to the Highway Road Construction Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 1998. Said amount is partially offset by revenues from the Highway Block Grant Fund, estimated to be $201,000. This is an annual appropriation that provides for the reconstruction of existing roadways. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Is there any input on Article 19? Article 20, Highway Sand Shed Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Highway Sand Shed Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 2003. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Any input on Article 20? Article 21, Bridge Construction Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Bridge Construction Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 1995. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Any input on Article 21? Article 22, Highway Building Improvement Repairs Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be added to the Highway Building Improvements Repairs Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 2014. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote is required. Input on Article 22. Article 23, Highway Sidewalk Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Highway Sidewalk Capital Reserve Fund, as previously established in 2007. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote required. Any input on Article 23? Article 24, Alton Bay Community Center Property Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to establish an Alton Bay Community Center Property Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of repairs and upgrades to the Alton Bay Community Center and property, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be placed into this fund. Furthermore, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Any Any input on Article 24? Article 25, Milfoil Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $23,000 to be added to the Milfoil Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2010. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 25? Article 26, Landfill Closure Capital Reserve Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be added to the Landfill Closure Capital Reserve Fund. As previously established in 1994, these funds are being used to deal with the contamination at the landfill and meet state regulatory requirements. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 26?
Lauren Carr. Am I reading the correct number, landfill closure? We have $44,289, $87.07?
I'm getting a nod from our finance manager.
And we spent $14,407.52 last year.
Yes, that is correct, on the decommissioning of a
So-
well and the reinstallation of a new well per DES.
Next year, we're anticipating a new well?
We could be with the new PFAS regulations that are being worked on, which is explained on your warrant article sheet in the rationale that's underneath the warrant article.
Right.
Yeah, we have to...
I just wonder, $5,000, that's like, we have so much in there now. I don't know, the Budget Committee still want to support that?
Could this fund also be used for, and I guess this is more of an opinion, could this fund also be used for purchasing contaminated property?
No,
Oh,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
this fund is required by DES, and this $5,000 is a decrease in previous years, compared to previous years.
Thank you,
Expenditure.
Chairman, this fund is a hit and miss deal. We don't know what's coming down the road. And I voted in favor of it, and I think we should put that in there. It's a type of fund, we really don't know what's coming.
But you could say that for 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, 44, and you've only spent 14, and do we have any history of how much a well costs?
Yes, it costs about, the $14,000 was to decommission one well and reinstall a new one in its place.
So if we have 44 and it costs 14 for a new well, is the Budget Committee still going to support 5,000?
We have approximately 55 wells right now that are in operation up there. And we have to do this per DES.
Yep. Well, my public input is I'd ask you to reconsider that 5,000. I think you've got enough money in there.
Thank you. Any further input on Article 26? Article 28. Article 28, Master Plan Consultant, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of hiring a master plan consultant who specializes in municipal master plan guidance, who will work with the planning board and staff to assist and address the master plan needs in process in the town of Alton. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 VI and will not lapse until the master plan consulting services are completed or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. Recommended by the Selectmen 5-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote required. Any input on Article 28? At this time, we will have to pause the budget, the town budget, recess the town budget public hearing, and enter into the school budget public hearing as it is 7 o'clock. Does that need to be an official motion, most likely?
I would.
I'll move.
I'll second it. You didn't hear who moved?
Sorry, I'll move that we recess the public hearing for the town budget and open public hearing for the school.
So
budget.
who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Seconded by Mr. Levitt.
Thank you.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? At this point, more procedurally, because the school budget was posted for 7 o'clock, we will go over the school warrant articles at this time. Again, we'll only be going over the money warrant articles here. So at this point, we will start with Article 2. Operating budget. Article 2. Shall the Alton School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote in the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $15,047,480.00. Fiscal note, the amount of $4,178,027 is the net appropriation for the Prospect Mountain High School operating budget, which is included in the gross budget amount listed above and recommended by the Joint Maintenance Agreement Budget Committee. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $14,833,959.00, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Alton School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and XVI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This warrant article does not include appropriations in any other warrant articles. The Alton School Board recommends $15,047,480 by a vote of 5-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $15,047,480 by a vote of 5-0. Any input on Article 2?
Lauren Carr. On the first yellow, first yellow sheet, it has the budget line 2018-2019. And the proposed budget from last year's sheets was $3,867,975, just for the 1100 account. So why is there a different number on this year saying the 2018-19 budget is one number and the sheets gave out last year is a different number? Did we pass the default budget last year for the school? I didn't think so.
No.
No. So here's last year's numbers. they don't match what you got on this sheet, the proposed budget.
So I'm sorry, you're saying the warrant article default budget doesn't match?
Yeah, the whole budget that's being presented to the Budget Committee is not the same number. You go down to the bottom of this sheet, first page yellow sheet, 15,337,392, right?
Not getting that number at all.
No. Yeah, that's the 218, 219 budget.
I don't even have that.
Yeah, right
The
there.
proposed budget on the yellow sheet is $15,047,480, which
Right.
matches the warrant article, which is $15,047,480.
But let's roll back to the budget 2018-19 line. Okay,
Which one, the budget or actual?
budget.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Proposed budget on last year's sheets for 1920 was 15,458,832.
They're
And
representative.
if you go through your sheets, the last year's proposed budget sheets don't match these.
Styles, would you care to address that? I will have to have you come up to the table.
Yeah, that's what I'm not either.
I don't either.
Well, I believe he's comparing the sheet from last budget season.
The proposed, it was presented to the people last year, right? There was proposed board budget with this number,
Right.
15,458.
Yep.
These new sheets you just passed out said that the number is 15,337.
No, this is 1920.
Yeah,
Both.
yeah,
Here it
that,
is, right here.
right,
Yep. This is 1920.
yeah,
They're the same number. 15,458,832. 1920, 1920. These are the same numbers. So this is 1920. This is 1920. The same numbers. You're looking at the 1819 budget there.
okay.
So the 1920s are exactly the same. And then
Okay.
the 1819 is the 15,337.
Okay. Okay, that explains that. Now this, on these lists, on these pages,
That's a default.
yes, the default, excuse me, default pages, it has like repairs, maintenance, and general, and you've got contractual obligations. Now, I could see the tuition to the JMA, but why do you have things like for the internet and the telephone?
That's a contract that we have with TDS and with the electric company. Those are all services that we must provide. That's not a one-time service. We have to pay an electric bill in order to run the school. We have to have telephones to run the school.
Okay, so why is there an increase? Why do you have the increase in the default
Because
budget?
rates go up every year in telephone, in electricity. Those costs go up every year.
Yeah, but you can't include those in a default budget, a proposed raises. It has to be a contract. By the default budget definition, it says it has to be a contract,
Right, which we
In your
have.
opinion.
We have a contract with TDS.
a multi-year contract?
We do, actually. We just entered into a 3-year.
And didn't the legislature say if it's a multi-year contract, it has to be by the legislative body okayed, or you can't put the increases in?
I don't believe for this case we had to, no.
Yeah, I think we have the same issue with the dump. If they have if the selectmen go, matter of fact, I think there's a paper put out where if the selectmen go with a multi-year contract, and there's a raise, if it goes in the default budget, you can't put in the increase, you can just put in the basic price.
But if it's a contract, we have to pay the price of the contract. And every year, the contract increases.
This is from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. What about the increased costs the town must pay for such things as electricity or bituminous concrete for fixing town roads? While the per-unit cost for certain accommodations may increase from one year to the next, such as the cost per kilowatt of electricity or the cost per ton of asphalt, the default budget includes the amount of the money appropriated for that purpose, the previously, not the amount that will be required for the same number of units in the coming year.
Contract.
Okay. So the telephone is a contract. The disposal services are a contract.
Yes, it is.
The fuel oil is a contract. Telephone's a contract. That has been signed by the selectmen and not the legislative body, hasn't okayed it.
School board.
It has been signed by the school district and approved by the school board. That's
Yeah,
correct.
but not the legislative body.
No, not for your contracts, we don't know.
Thank you.
Further discussion on school board article, or school article 2. Article 3, three-year collective bargaining agreement. Article 3, to see if the school district will vote to approve the cost items associated with collective bargaining agreement reached between the Alton School District and the Alton Teachers Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Year 2020 to 2021, estimated increase, $137,630. Year 2021 to 2022, estimated increase, $149,630. Year 2022 to 2023, estimated increase, $146,468. And further to raise and appropriate the sum of $137,630.00 for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional cost attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits over the appropriation at the current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year and in accordance with the most recent collective bargaining agreement. The Alton School Board recommends $137,630 by a vote of 3-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $137,630 by a vote of 5-0. Is there any discussion on Article 3? Article 4, is that, we'll read it. Address cost items only if Article 3 fails. Article 4, special warrant articles. Shall the school district, if Article 3 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 3 cost items only. Discussion on Article 4. Article 5, add funds to the Buildings and Grounds Expendable Trust. Article 5, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $165,000 to be added to the existing Buildings and Grounds Expendable Trust, created 3/11 of '08 under RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of building, repairing, and maintaining school facilities, cafeteria upgrade. The Alton School Board recommends $165,000 by a vote of 3-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $165,000 by a vote of 5-0. Further discussion on Article 5. Article 6, create Technology Expendable Trust. Article 6, to see if the school district will vote to create an expendable trust fund under the provisions of RSA 198:20-C to be known as the Alton Technology Expendable Trust for the purpose of unanticipated expenses that may arise in the Alton School District related to technology infrastructure, hardware, software, and any other technology-based expenses. Furthermore, to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 towards this purpose, and to name the Alton School Board as agents to expend from this fund. The Alton School Board recommends $30,000 by a vote of 3-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $30,000 by a vote of 5-0. Any input on Article 6? Article 7, add to Buildings and Grounds Expendable Trust. Article 7, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate up to $100,000 to be added to the Buildings and Grounds Expendable Trust previously created on 3/11/08 under RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of building, repairing, and maintaining school facilities. This sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. No amount to be raised from taxation. The Alton School Board recommends $100,000 by a vote of 5-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $100,000 by a vote of 5-0. Is there any input on Article 7? Article 8, add to Special Education Capital Reserve Fund. Article 8, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate up to $100,000 to be added to the existing Special Education Capital Reserve Fund, previously established on 3/14/87 under RSA 35:2:1-2. This sum to come from June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. No amount to be raised from taxation. The Alton School Board recommends $100,000 by a vote of 5-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $100,000 by a vote of 5-0. Is there any input on Article 8? Article 9, add to PMHS Athletic Capital Reserve Fund. Article 9, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be added to the Prospect Mountain High School Athletic Field Capital Reserve Fund, previously established. Said sum representing 50% of the total appropriation of $30,000, and further, that this appropriation shall be contingent upon both Alton 50% and Barnstead 50% school districts adopting the article and appropriating and transferring their respective sum of money. JMA Board recommends by a vote of 3-0. The Alton School Board recommends $15,000 by a vote of 3-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $15,000 by a vote of 5-0. I believe, anybody have any input on Article 9? There's no further input on the school warrant articles. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing and resume the public hearing for the school budget and resume the public hearing for the town.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will resume the town portion at Article 29. Town Hall Building Improvement Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $14,000 to be added to the Town Hall Buildings Improvements Capital Reserve Fund as previously established in 2011. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Recommended by the CIP Committee. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 29? Article 30, Town Hall Second Floor Lift. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of replacing the first floor lift, which provides access to the second floor of the town hall. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 VI and will not lapse until the lift replacement is complete or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. This sum to come from unassigned fund balance. No amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 4-1. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 5-1. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 30? Article 31, IT Internet Technology Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish an IT Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of funding large-scale IT needs and projects. This would include system upgrades, new hardware equipment, servers, computer and network software, GIS, security systems, audio-visual systems, and emergencies. Further, to raise and appropriate $6,346 to be placed in this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. Recommended by the Selectmen 5-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote is required. Any input on Article 31? Article 32, GIS, Geographical Information System Expense. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 for the purpose of installing the first phase of a GIS system for the utilization by all town departments. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 VI and will not lapse until the first phase is complete or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. This sum to come from unassigned fund balance. No amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 32? We will jump ahead to Article 35. Water Main Expense Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a Water Main Expense Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of paying for expenses incurred during any creation of a water main or main to stop. The installation, repair, upgrade, removal, location change, and replacement of the same, and to raise and appropriate $1 to be placed into this fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. No impact to the tax rate. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 35? Article 36, Water Bandstand Maintenance and Repair Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,500 to be added to the Water Bandstand Maintenance and Repair Capital Reserve Fund, previously established in 2014. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Any input on Article 36? Article 37, Bay Dock Work. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,400 for the purpose of replacing the existing dock attached to the restaurant known as Shibley's on the Pier. To allow the public to dock at the new dock, add 1 or 2 boat fingers as space will allow to the new dock area. Fix the eroding banking behind the dock and attach this new dock to the public town docks using an extension of the existing boardwalk. This special warrant article will be non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 VI and will not lapse until the repairs and renovations are completed or by December 31st, 2024, whichever is sooner. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 37?
Lauren Carr, I would ask the board to reconsider, under the explanation, as you flip over the next page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth line down, halfway across, it says, "This dock will become town-owned and town-maintained." I don't think we should be taking over property.
I believe when we reviewed this, I can't speak to this wording because obviously we didn't set the wording, but the way I understand it is if the dock that's presently there extends beyond 10 feet from the perimeter of the building, we're responsible for it anyway. So again, I can't speak to the wording, but that's the way I understood it.
Was the board's opinion, if it is not owned by the town, that you should be taking it over?
Well, I think what it means is the part that they're adding currently isn't there.
Well,
So it also, if you read further down, it says, it specifically states that the 10 feet that are adjacent to the restaurant are still going to be maintained by the owners of the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
The new part that you're talking about is that extension that's going to go from the existing dock, the existing town dock, to the existing, I don't know, that area by the banking there, that's terrible. That's all going to be new. So anything outside of that 10 foot that's adjacent to the restaurant is going to be the town's.
But there's a dock there now.
Right, and they're going to tear it down and replace it.
But is it owned by the town? Because this says the dock will become town-owned and town-maintained.
I don't know if that current dock, it is owned by the town, correct? Because it's outside of the 10 feet.
So that particular dock known as Shibley's on the Pier dock, it's a little gray as far as if the town owns it or if the building owner owns it. There's reason to believe that the town owns it because of the curtilage area that's written on the property card, which goes 10 feet around the structure, including their lower deck, and it cuts across that dock 10 feet out, as you know, because you met with our assessor today and you received all of this information. The lease is not clear, and the property history is not clear on that, and because of all of that, however, let me back up, the restaurant is taxed on the entire dock beyond that 10-foot curtilage because they use it for their restaurant. And because of all of this, the Board of Selectmen and Mr. Shibley are in the process of doing an agreement to replace the current dock because it's in very poor condition and really should not be used at all. And this summer it was used by people of the Water Bandstand Committee to have Water Bandstand Day and everything, and there are some safety issues and liability issues. The banking needs to be repaired. There is access to the dock from the parking lot, which is another indicator that that it is the town's because of the concrete steps that come down beside the eroding banking and so on and so forth. So everyone is in agreement to do this. The lease will be rewritten once the warrant article passes, and everything will be crystal clear as far as the town will now own it, including the 10 feet within the curtilage area. However, the building owner will be taxed on that 10 feet and will be responsible for the cost of the repairs within that 10 feet. Does that make sense? Okay. Tried to explain it as best I could.
So somebody's been taxed for this dock for years, and we say it's a gray area. And the town has taken over a person's private dock, a dock that he's been paying on for years.
He has been taxed on...
We're going to have to pay for the maintenance from now on, the liability if somebody falls on this thing. I don't see why are you people supporting taking over a piece of private property? It's a private property. If it's been taxed for this so many years, what would happen if you went into court? What would they say? Now, this gray area business,
It's a lease that he's paying taxes on, not private property he's paying taxes on.
paying, it just said, yeah.
He's paying a lease to use town-owned property. So basically, the town owns the property.
No,
that he's
that isn't,
leasing.
she just said it's a gray area.
It's a gray area, however, there are indicators that the town does own the dock. The curtilage line on the property card, which I just explained, access by the public to that particular dock. However, the restaurant owner has been taxed on the full dock because he uses it, or he allows people to get off of their boats there to go into the restaurant. And because of that, he is taxed beyond the 10-foot curtilage area.
Well, I went down there
As
and
you
there's
know.
a sign on there that says, for boat parking only for the restaurant. So, this is another issue. I think this is a bad precedent. I think you people should say no until this gets straightened out.
I think it's a win-win, Lauren, I really do.
How
You're
is it
getting-
a win?
'cause you're
How is
getting-
it a
you're
win for
gonna-
me?
Not only is the town gonna now own that dock,
Mm-hmm.
specifically, but there's gonna be added parking for boats there.
Right.
Are the signs coming down?
Yeah,
That's going to be
there's
part
gonna
of
be
the
no indication that
agreement
it's parking
gonna be
only for the
full
restaurant.
public
It's gonna be
voting.
public
Yes.
boat
It's supposed to
parking.
be in the new lease.
And that's going to be in the new agreement and everything, so the signs will be gone.
It's gonna be safer, it's gonna look better, there's gonna be more public that is gonna be coming into town. It's a,
I don't see how it benefits me, personally. What benefits me?
You can go down and
$80,000 of my
dock and-
taxpayers, huh? So he gets more revenue. He makes more revenue, he can go down to Aruba for a week instead of, and we're gonna foot the bill?
he's not the only person benefiting, the whole downtown area is benefiting.
The whole town.
You know, I just look back the last 5 years. You know how much we spent down at the Bay? Any idea?
I don't know
Lot more than we
exactly, but I
spent
can.
downtown, yeah.
$365,000. You put this in, it's over $450,000. You know how much we spent in the town? 70. I don't see that this is a win for anybody but the Shibley's restaurant. And I think it's a question of exactly who owns that dock. I think we're gonna have more liability, we're gonna have to maintain it from now on. I don't see how this is a win-win for anybody but the person who owns the restaurant, who runs the restaurant.
My timer went.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 37? Welcome.
Thank you.
Wouldn't mind just stating your name?
Richard Shea, Roberts Cove Road. Not specifically Article 37, but I'm new to town and I'm just beginning to figure out how the government works. And I noticed several of the warrant articles that involve capital projects that typically might take more than a single budget year to complete are defaulted to a 4-year window regardless of the reasonable time that the project might require. And I wonder if that's a state requirement or a town practice or the result of careful consideration. For instance, the elevator gadget out here to enable people to get to the second floor. I could see where maybe with the contracts and all, it would require more than a year to award the contract and get the work completed, but 4 or 5 years seems rather extreme. And I just don't know what drives that. I'd appreciate it if I could be enlightened, although it doesn't have to be at this meeting. Thank you.
Is there anybody prepared to speak to that?
I could speak to that.
Town Administrator?
Yes, hello. So there is a state law that applies to this specific situation that you're talking about. It's RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6. It's called a non-lapsing appropriation, and the state allows municipalities to create a warrant article using this for a period of anywhere from 1 to 5 years. And we always do the maximum allowed 5 years in case we are not able to finish the project in the first year and use all the funds, because if you have it just for 1 year, on December 31st, the remaining funds expire and we have lost them.
All right, okay, and that makes sense, and I appreciate the answer. I would encourage in the future that if you have projects that obviously can be easily finished in less than 5 years, you take the advantage of the statute's allowance and shorten things up a little. Having been involved in town government in Connecticut, where it's really a lot of fun, I've noticed that when appropriations get made and there isn't some kind of a time limit or one off in the distance, it's easy to shove them aside. Then all of a sudden, the original budget estimates are no longer valid because everything has gone up, or there's a new law that got passed that's complicated things. So I hope in the future that can be given some consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to have another question, Lauren, about this. I noticed in the pictures it was passed out with the red lettering. It said that it was for the product for the walls. Does that mean that the town highway crew is going to do the work on the wall?
I don't have a crossed out red section, so I can't. Does anybody have that?
I can answer the question about the town staff doing the work. If possible, yes, that's the original intent, to fix that banking. And we have had some people already look at that dock under the water as well as on top, including the highway manager.
Yep. Further discussion on Article 37. We'll move on to Article 38, Old Home Week. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the purpose of funding Old Home Week events, such as band concerts, magic shows, and other forms of activities, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0, majority vote required. Any input on Article 38? Article 40, Alton Community Services Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,500 for the purpose of supporting Alton Community Services, which provides food pantry and assistance programs for fuel, prescriptions, utilities, and housing in close coordination with the Alton Welfare Department. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Input on Article 40. Article 41, American Red Cross Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,000 for the purpose of supporting the American Red Cross, which provides disaster relief, shelters, basic household necessities, and counseling. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 41? Article 42, CAP Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the purpose of supporting the Community Action Program, which provides supplemental food, fuel, utility, transportation, Meals on Wheels, weatherization assistance, and women, infants, and children food assistance program, WIC. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 42? Article 43, Caregivers of Southern Carroll County and Vicinity Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 for the purpose of supporting Caregivers of Southern Carroll County and Vicinity, Inc., includes Alton, which provides free transportation to handicapped, elderly, and other residents needing assistance with all these services provided by volunteers. This is a special warrant article recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 43? Article 44, CASA nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500 for the purpose of supporting CASA, court-appointed special advocates, which provides advocacy for abused and neglected children. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 44? Article 45, Central New Hampshire VNA and Hospice Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,000 for the purpose of supporting the Central New Hampshire VNA and Hospice, which is a nonprofit agency that provides health care, hospice care, and maternal child health services. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 45? Article 46, Child and Family Services of New Hampshire nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 for the purpose of supporting Child and Family Services of New Hampshire. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Majority vote required. Any input on Article 46? Article 47, Lakes Region Mental Health Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,750 for the purpose of supporting Lakes Region Mental Health Center, which provides mental health care to area residents, services for children, elders, along with other emergency services. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 47? Article 48, Life Ministries Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the purpose of supporting Life Ministries, Inc., which is a not-for-profit charity that provides food and staples to Alton residents. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-0. Majority vote required. Is there any input on Article 48? Article 49, New Beginnings Nonprofit, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,575 for the purpose of supporting New Beginnings, which provides 24-hour crisis support for domestic sexual assault victims, operates a shelter, and provides counseling. This is a special warrant article, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. A majority vote is required. Is there any input on Article 49? Is there any other public input relevant to the 2020 warrant articles? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Markland, second by Ms. Varney, to close public input, or, I'm sorry, the public hearing. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you all for coming. For input. We'll move on to approval of minutes, January 9th, 2020.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 9th, 2020.
Have a motion by Mr. Markland, second by Mr. Levitt. Those in favor? Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, on the operating budget vote, I was listed, I seconded the motion. If I recall, I did not second the motion. I believe Ruben, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, seconded it.
Town or school?
I could be wrong.
Are you talking about the town or the school?
Nope, the town, the operating budget, at our last meeting.
That would make sense.
The minutes have got me seconding it. And I
Oh,
normally don't second something that I'm going to vote against, which is what I did.
I have,
So, if I remember right, it was Reuben. But
it was moved by John and seconded by
Bob Holton.
P.L. Peter.
Oh, Peter?
What was Peter?
Bob was against.
Okay, well, in the minutes, it's
Fine.
got me listed.
Peter, do you
I was
recall,
gonna
would
say,
you be okay with
well,
that?
that's funny, because I was going through this, going, I thought I seconded a couple. And I don't in here. Yes, that does make sense, yes.
Make a motion, I'll rescind my motion. You rescind your second?
I'll rescind my second.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 9th as amended.
I will second that.
Motion by Mr. Markland, second by Mr. Levitt. Further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good catch.
Thank you. Coffee tonight? New business, additional warrant articles. I do not believe we received any petition articles that need to be reviewed at this point. Any other changes?
Yesterday was the deadline.
Anybody else have anything for new business? We'll move on to old business. We've actually already approved all of these. This was left in here as a placeholder if we made any adjustments to go back through and approve them at this point. Does anybody have anything that they wish to review at this point?
I'd just like to make a comment in regards to the warrant article on the lift, of this lift for $50,000 that's being proposed. I know we had a lengthy discussion about it at the last meeting. I was reviewing some videos of the selectmen's meetings in early October and learned that the selectmen received a unanticipated revenue from the state in the amount of $64,000, which is going to go in, $50,000 is going to go into that unassigned fund balance. So with that being considered, to me, it's a wash item, because the state has actually given us the money to pay for the lift. So I understand there was some talk about the money being taken out for offsetting taxes, and it shouldn't be done. But if you look at it in that fashion, $50,000 is going in. If this gets approved, it's going to go towards the elevator. So to me, it's a win. Thank you to the state. That's all I had.
You also have anything in the way of old business? We'll open up to regular meeting public input. Is anybody that would like to speak?
Excuse me.
Oh, boy.
Careful there.
Right?
Still say that $50,000, $80,000 for the docks. The town owns the property. He owns the buildings, structures. That's what he pays taxes on. If he's been paying taxes on it, then it hasn't been town property. We own the land, not the buildings. We're taking over private dock. We should reconsider. And as I say, it's just benefiting such a few number of people down there.
I personally don't know enough on the topic to speak to it.
I was always under the stipulation that we own, the town owned.
I
So,
was also,
and I'm still under that stipulation. From what I've heard from our town administrator, might not be too clear. Am I right or wrong?
It's a little gray, but we're leaning towards the town owning it and the restaurant being taxed on it because they're using it for their business. You know, and And this will be cleared up with a future agreement to make it crystal clear if the warrant article passes. But in the meantime, there's liability to think of. There's public access to it from the parking lot going down the concrete steps, patrons exiting the dining deck in the back and walking out there to look around or perhaps get into a boat. And it is such a litigious society nowadays that if somebody were injured and tripped on one of the boards that's curled up or something, they will sue everyone they can. Everyone thinks towns and cities have deep pockets, and we don't. So, like Mr. Levitt said, it is a win-win situation if this all goes as planned, and the poor condition of the dock will be fixed. It'll be replaced fully, and the banking and the steps and everything.
It'll be straightened out.
Right. Yep.
I just wanted to say it's going to get straightened out. How come it's where it is now? I don't know, I just can't
It's
understand.
awful now.
Maybe Mr. Carr can answer that. He used to be a selectman years ago. I don't know.
Well, there's so many things in this town that, for instance, we learned with the CIP that are not planned on.
Your time's up, Mr. Chairman.
But we learned this with CIP. There's so many things that are not planned on, and I think this is one of those things. We've got our eyes on the, $500, $600, $800 million projects, but we forget about the $40,000 projects kind of along the lines because other things take priority.
A lot of things down at the bay that maintenance was let go on that wasn't paid attention to that should have been.
Yeah.
Because people weren't attention.
And I would have to concur with Mr. Levitt's comments in regards to this particular warrant article, and I'm not a boater. I have nothing to do with the town docks, but speaking as a resident and understanding the importance of the bay that I've heard from my constituents that I've talked to, I can understand this being an item that needs to be addressed.
The selectmen certainly feel that way, too.
Well, I don't think that's an issue. Definitely, all you have to do is look at it. It has to be addressed. It's how it's going to be addressed is the issue, my personal opinion.
Any further public input? Other business as necessary. I just wanted to note the deliberative session to the board. Did go over that. Does everybody at this point feel they'll be able to attend?
When is it?
It is February 4th.
Tied up.
Yeah, I think we had
6
that
p.m.
date already, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, I
That's
believe
the
so.
deliberative?
Down at home.
Yeah, the
Prospect Mountain High School.
snow date is the next day,
What time? 6?
6.
What day is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
At Prospect Mountain.
Prospect Mountain High School.
Is it Prospect Mountain?
Yes.
That's Central School
All right. Any other business?
Circle.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Markman, second by Ms. Barney.